Hey guys, my name's Decent Treatment, and nothing beats an electric airship holiday. Right now, you can save £50 per person. That's £200 off for a family of four. We've got a great guest for you today, the Fangamer co-founder and lead developer for the Off Remake, 22 kilograms of baggage included. It's truly an honor to welcome Ryan Alyea. How's it going today?
Yes. Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Uh, total privilege. Total privilege. So, for people unaware, Off is one of the most influential RPG Maker games in history. With puzzles that respect your intelligence and an esoteric storytelling style, it's truly a one-of-a-kind experience. But why remake Off nearly 20 years after its initial release?
Yeah, so Off came out about 17 years ago. It celebrated its 17th in May, I believe, of this year. And the biggest reason why is just to support Mortis Ghost. A bunch of us got together and we were like, well, how can we support this strange RPG from a long time ago that was such a big influence on all of us? And, because I talk a lot with indie developers. And we decided that, like, hey, what if we actually did, like, a re-release on major platforms? The game was originally free, and we're like,
Hmm.
honestly, that's probably the best way to support Mortis, which was just like allow people the chance to actually like, you know, give Mortis money for his game.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Because initially it was a freeware thing.
Yes, and
Yeah.
still is, by the way. We are still happily having people wanting to have the free version out there. We're not going to stop any sort of distribution. In fact, we highly encourage it. Everybody's all about game preservation, and I'm like, look, this is just the next evolution of this game, but you are more than welcome to go play all the way up to the original French release. It's still out there. You can still play it.
Oh, that's so awesome that you guys are preserving that. Um, yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the first game that you guys are publishing over there at Fangamer.
Yeah, so this is our first release on Steam and Switch. Fangamer has always done a couple of like internal kind of like um sort of like in jokes for us and our audience. So one of the games we released was called Sweet 33, SWEET 33, and it was kind of like a little dating sim based off of all the employees of Fangamer.
Oh, that's fun.
Over COVID, we'd also released a game called Mayonnaise Hole VR, which, if you don't know, Mayonnaise Hole is again a Fangamer in joke. You can go check out just, I believe it's mayohole.com and check out like the game that we had made. Mayonnaise Hole is a staple within the Fangamer community, and over COVID, we made a VR version of that because, of course, at the time we couldn't play it in person. But yeah, this is our first major release on Steam and Switch, and certainly one that I've been a developer for. Certainly,
Yeah, yeah. In fact, you've spearheaded the combat overhaul. One of the most exciting things about this remake. Is there a specific part of the combat system that you're most excited for?
absolutely. Like, I'm not sure who came up with this. I'll try to look, and we found like in our meeting notes, and we came up with this really great idea, and I think it was just a kind of a group decision among all of us. And that's the critical hit system, where it is telegraphed in advance. So you'll see both on the player side and on the enemy side that and you've seen that in the demo if you've played the demo,
Hmm.
where the spike, like you spike up a little bit, and your turn gets to be a little bit quicker. That's a critical hit. And in traditional RPGs, you have a critical hit where it's like does extra damage. Well, because you know it in advance, everything, any action that you do has a some sort of effect when you do a critical hit. So if you do a critical defend, you're actually going to be defending more, something like that. But also, there are other effects that can happen that are more than just like a regular effect. So, for example, on a revive, you just get like a 25% revive. A critical revive gives you 100%. It's a full heal, right? So, because there is no original full revive in the original game, and we've tried to keep a lot of things as close to the original as possible, including all of the original items. So, if we
Right.
wanted to add like a full revive, you would just have to use the critical hit system to be able to do that.
Wow. That's pretty innovative. My goodness.
Yeah. And one of the other things that we've done is that, and it's not just the ones that do like numbers. So, for example, wide angle, which in the original game gave you like the name of the enemy and like their basic stats and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, you still get the stats, you still get the information, you still get the elemental effect. But one thing about if you use a critical hit on that, that gives you a the actual like HP values rather than an HP meter. That's the normal one.
Right.
And that's remembered across everything. So if you encounter the enemy again, you don't have to do it again. So that's something that we've
Oh, like a nice
updated.
quality of life feature. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one thing that we've added, and that was requested since the demo that came out on Steam. So that we've added many, like one good thing about having the demo out is that we got a lot of feedback from players, and we've been incorporating a lot of that.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So you guys are taking advantage of the player feedback. It's good to hear that you guys are motivated by the fan reception.
Yeah, so the fan reception, we've been paying attention to it a lot, and while we don't really like, we're not going to put out any like arguments or statements or any of that nature. My personal philosophy is always to respond in the patch notes. Um,
I like that.
so that's one thing that we're intending on doing. So I hope that like a lot of people, when they go and play the full game, that they can see a lot of the changes that have occurred since the demo has come out.
Yeah.
We're gonna still honor, like for example, we took down the demo because we've done so many patches to the, or not patches, updates to the base game that like the demo just was so far out of sync. We're still going to honor
Hmm.
the players. You can still use your save from the demo and continue on, but we do recommend that it's not wasn't that far. It's about a half hour to an hour's worth of content, and if you don't mind, start all over again because you might get a different new experience.
Hmm.
But yeah, otherwise you'll still have to go through the first boss again because that's where the last save was. So you'll still be able to see all the changes we had made to the first boss, Didan.
Oh, okay. Goodness. So you've been making changes to the bosses as well. It's not just the level. Um, interesting. Interesting. Okay.
So one thing we have already announced is that we are making a change to Didan's song. So we've already made that announcement. But there, and then
Aha.
we did show
Okay.
on social media. Didan now has a little clock animation, so that we did show that on social media as well. So the clock animation gets you a better idea of when Didan's going to do his like super moves.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's good to have these kinds of telegraphs. Um, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Wow. So even going as far as to update the song, I knew that was contentious for some. So
Right.
yeah. Okay, cool. So many things to be excited about in this remake. The other day you mentioned this unique take on difficulty options. How did you come up with this?
Yeah, so the real basic version is that the new bosses, the first three in particular, can be challenged pretty early on due to kind of the open nature of the game. I'm not going to give too terribly much spoilers, but if you've already played the game, you probably have a good idea of where the first three bosses are going to be. So, and we've shown so on social media as well. So, one thing that's interesting is that we've made a bunch of saves from speed running straight to the boss. Like your goal is to just do as much as you can to get as little as you can to get straight to that boss to a normal playthrough to like somebody that's like 100% grinder, right? And
Hmm.
try to make the bosses fun for at least all of those encounters. Now, obviously, the grinder, you should still be rewarded for grinding. Like, of course, you're going to be having a much more easier time than the speedrunner, but you still want to make it like interesting, right? And so, one of the things we've done is that we've done that. Um, and we've been able to have like because of that like non-linear nature of that, we've come up with
Hmm.
different concepts that make it a lot make things interesting for all players. So even if you're still having like an easy time, you're still going to have to like change up tactics or figure out something on the fly, that sort of thing, right?
Right.
And then one of the side effects of that is that since we have like these low level saves, is that some of our playtesters are getting really good at low level. So like as of the past like month or so, we've been doing balancing and balancing. So like the game's done, but like we're constantly doing balance and updates.
That's interesting.
So more lethal has been kind of our go-to in like the more recent balances. One thing that is public, the game obviously is coming out in about 2 weeks from recording. So the game's out for review. So you might see little patch notes that say like, "Hey, we've updated the balance for that," so reviewers can get an idea of like what we've changed.
Hmm.
So that is public, so you can at least go to like the off patch notes for an unreleased game and see it, and you'll see like, yeah, we've made them a little more harder. We've added some things to it just so that
Right.
we can telegraph to reviewers and public playtesters, hey, this is like we're still working on this.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I guess the intent is to continue working on that even past release.
Yes, we definitely plan on doing that. We definitely, I certainly have like one update in mind, and that will be adding additional languages. So we've already
Oh yeah.
announced that we'll be doing Japanese, and that will be coming at some point after release. Um,
Huge.
and so we will be doing updates to that. And while we're doing that, we'll still be doing like boss balance, of fixes to updates to animations, that sort of thing. So it's not
Yeah.
like we're going to release it and be like, that's it, that's out. Like we will be supporting the game for if there are feedback that we can change, especially if it's just like a balanced number change, we'll certainly like take a look at that. Though I will say again, the point is that for the optional new bosses, they are meant to be harder. So I'm the last ones, we're not pulling any punches. So
Okay. Something to look out for, you guys.
yeah.
Um, that's awesome. So it sounds like this new combat system has sort of necessitated a real, like, taking into account of all the numbers, lots of play testing, and it's good to hear that you're
Yeah,
being so intentional with the different play styles.
exactly. And one of the more interesting challenges is that because of the remake of the game, we're using a lot of the original competences in the game.
Hmm.
So when we're doing these new bosses, we have to keep in mind that, you can't just have like, oh, you have your traditional trinity of like, DPS heal support, and you kind of have that in off, but you also have characters that do like that epsilon focuses a lot on like crowd control, and
Hmm.
that's useful, but also like most of the new bosses are just going to be one character. So
Right.
like how can you make things more interesting while you have one of your party members is focused on multiple different like if you have multiple different enemies. So how do you make these encounters when you have an already existing skill set and not changing things? That said, we
Yeah.
do like we're not 100% like using all of the original like spells. So for example, the things like we're playing around with what cures what and like what effects are happening. So some things might be a little sooner than stuff, and the different mixes of things are changing, but the spirit is all there. But it's all in the idea of balance, that like, hey, you have a problem and you just got this new tool, as opposed to something, if we didn't have that and we were stuck with the original set of like skills, that is to say like, the same, like this heals this same as the original,
Hmm.
that's a little bit, that kind of stifles things a little bit. But we still kept a lot of the original spirit, so it's
Right.
still going to be like um a status cure, a all party thing, a buff. It's just what gets buffed and what gets cured really is the only things that we're changing, and still allows us to have interesting encounters.
Right. Yeah. Gosh, that's fascinating. Trying to mix things up while still keeping the same gameplay style. That's a interesting
Right.
design challenge for sure. Um, yeah. Goodness. So it's clear that you have some very deep ideas about combat systems. What advice would you impart to the talented indies watching, designing their own RPG Maker combat?
Playtest, playtest, playtest. Watch people, ask questions. And when I say ask questions, I mean you're going to ask people, and the biggest thing that you're always going to get was, it was fine, or I thought about this, or I thought about that. And just keep asking questions until you get to like the actual heart of the matter, right?
Hmm.
Eventually you'll get to a certain point where you'll be like, oh, well, it was kind of too long and I got bored, or I was stressed the entire time, or something like that. And if that wasn't the effect that you're going for, because sometimes you do want stress, or sometimes maybe board that's not an off, but maybe board is an effect that you want, then good, you reached your goal. Um, you know, but you want to be able to have people understand and play the game, because it's one thing to do it yourself, but even like if you're doing it yourself, you will become an expert at the game very quickly. Like I can speed run through the game at such low levels because not only I know the rules, like I know all the cheeses too,
Right.
and all the cheeses that I've left in intentionally to be like, nah, I'm leaving that. Um, but so that's why you really want to play test so you can see what people get and what people don't. An example of this was that we showed off at PAX East, this most recent time, where we had a unique build of the game where we had people go through different portions of the game. So you had like a zone 1 portion, a zone 2 portion, and a zone 3 portion that you just had people experience different parts of the game.
Hmm.
And one thing that we did was like, so Thursday was the first day of PAX East, and it was a Thursday. It's not a very popular day, but we still had a lot of people come and play the game. That night we were up till like midnight, 1 in the morning, making changes to the demo just so that it was a lot better experience for
Hmm.
people. Some of it was like, oh, we're going to need to add this to the full game, and some of it was, hey, we need to do stuff for the demo because we had a 2-hour line and we needed to like quicken up the game.
Right.
At some point you have to be able to go, hey, like, please, like, we're going to give you 20 minutes, and that's great. Um, but we want to have everyone to having a chance to experience it. We only had like a tiny 10 by 10 and like four spaces.
Yeah, off, if you're playing off for the very first time, it can be quite I don't know, it's a cerebral experience, it's not quite
Exactly,
arcadey,
right?
right?
Exactly, right? So especially at the very beginning with the Zone Zero, and you had a lot of people play those puzzles, and I know them by heart. I know all the puzzle solutions by heart. I just go through, beep, boop, beep, boop, done, right? And it's unchanged from the original, right? There is no changes whatsoever, and people experiencing it for the first time has, especially when I saw it at PAX East, and anytime that I see it in person, has been an interesting experience. One thing that we did add was a hint system. So
Mhm.
if you do find yourself like a little stuck, the escape key or the minus key on the Switch will show you hints on what to do. This is especially true if you come back to the game later. As the game progresses, the hints just tend to be like, go here. So it's kind of more of like a, where were you at the current moment? So you play the game on a Friday, you go out, go out on the weekend, come back, and you're like, well, where was I? Right? You can at
Right.
least push the hint to be like, where's the next step?
That's huge for uninterrupted gameplay because, like, otherwise I feel like people would just look up a walkthrough or something, right? You don't want that.
Right, yeah. And so there is some in there. And some of the early hints will tell you what to do, but then eventually just becomes, just essentially the story beat, which is
Right.
just like find this or go here, and that's because you were already told by a character to go do that.
Huge. Yeah, that's a rare feature I feel like more developers should implement. Awesome. 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 Well, thanks for sharing your great advice to the RPG developers out there.
Yeah.
Um, you'd alluded to these entirely new areas and bosses that we can experience. So how is this new content pushing beyond what was possible in RPG Maker 2003?
So Maker 2003, in case nobody is aware, is a very extremely limited system. Like there's only so much that you can do, right? The other RPG makers, there's a lot more programming that you can do, but this one was particularly limited. So we still, in honor of the original spirit, we still keep a lot of the same sort of concepts for all of the original bosses in the game. There's still some changes, but they would be something that you would see in a more like heavily programmed 2K3 game. So you would still see some effects, but we did make some small changes. But especially the new bosses, it's where you start to see like you just have straight up different phases. You have
Mhm.
animations, full animations going everywhere. Um, you have all the different options that are available to you, such as that would not be available in RPG Maker 2K3. So like we have full control over the AI.
Mhm.
So when we have an AI that's doing like a base, like our RPG Maker is just like a weighted average, I believe, and that's your only option outside of like the limited scripting that you can do. This one is like, okay, we're going to make some choices based off of a whole bunch of information, right? Are we going to focus on this? Are we going to focus on that? So especially the later bosses just get real nasty because they will just pick on like the highest HP player or the lowest HP player depending upon what the move is and that sort of thing, right? So they will actually like be actually be against you and very, very lethal.
Hmm. Okay. So some
Yeah,
very
exactly.
intelligent bosses. That's interesting. Uh, Also fascinating to hear the idea of full animation being more taken advantage of here.
Yeah, you might see that with the new bosses. Kind of, there's a concept to them, and so we haven't done too terribly much, but sorry, let me phrase that. We haven't shown too terribly much to people, and we kind of want to keep that a little bit of a secret. But you'll know that like, hey, this is kind of like for returning players, you will know that this is new content. I'll say that.
Hmm. Okay, cool. It's a pretty stark difference in just the amount of development that's gone into these. The production quality is greater, perhaps. Uh,
Yes.
yeah.
And again, it's not because we don't, you know, we're looking to honor the original content and provide a true remake. And so this is the new content is really for both old and new fans to like really go, hey, this kind of like is additional like additional content, additional lore, that sort of thing, right? So it's kind of
Yeah.
like more, for those that are already fans, you get a little bit more, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Gosh, love that philosophy of keeping things for the most part untouched. Just kind of like giving QOL updates, maybe touching up the animations here and there, and then kind of going super hard on the new content. Um,
Right.
so, to what extent has Mortis Ghost, the original creator, been involved in this new content?
From the very beginning and all the way to the very end. So provided all the new sprite work, provided the outwork or sorry, the outline for all the new bosses, feedback, direction. Now we have a team, of course, here that we have a team of animators, we have a team of sound design and that sort of thing. So we still have other people involved in the project, but Mortis has been involved from the beginning, has seen every update, provided feedback on everything. So and it is wonderful to work with. Like provides is just generally a nice, wonderful person to provide feedback and is, you know, um, provides all sorts of just like interesting information, and generally is keeping um, uh, with us in trying to keep things a lot of like, so what's the meaning behind this and what's the meaning behind that? And the answer to the
Right.
question is, well, maybe I know. I certainly ask him any questions that I know. And on the other hand, it's like, well, many things you're going to have to ask Mortis because Mortis provided me with the script and, I'm going to implement it, really.
Right. Right. So, really, he's been a very involved director figure.
Correct. Yeah. So he's
Yeah.
been involved, certainly. Now that said, like the entire team has been working on everything, so we've provided our own take on everything. So there has been, a lot of a lot of talk when the demo came out about how there are other influences in the game. And some of that is, we've taken the feedback and we've kind of pulling back a little and kind of letting Mortis's work kind of shine on top of everything else, especially when it comes to the original content of the game, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome to hear. I know there's been a little bit of contention in that regard, so I'm sure people will be excited to hear that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, my goodness. So, did Mortis Ghost like do the new illustrations for the bosses and things like this?
Yes.
Oh, good.
So
Perfect.
all the new bosses, there are some new enemies too. So you will see all new, and Mortis did all of those.
Good. Good. Okay. I feel like that's very important. Um, cool. But every developer with such nuanced design takes has a rich gaming history. Ryan, I want to know, what was your very first video game?
My very first video game was, of course, Super Mario and Legend of Zelda on the NES. I was old enough to just have one as a kid right
Wow.
around when it
Okay.
came out.
Yeah.
So, like, so those were certainly like some of my more formative games. But
Huh.
certainly, like, I would say, like, everybody says, like, what's your first game? And of course, this is what I played when I was like 8 or 9. But like the first game that I really truly fell in love with was Earthbound for the Super Nintendo.
Ah, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so, gosh, probably goes without saying, but does your experience with Earthbound still inspire you today?
Oh, of course. Like it inspires everything, right? It's been kind of a meme now that like, the indie game community is that, you have is it a cave story or is it an Earthbound, right? Or something of that nature, right?
Right.
And uh I understand that meme and I get it, but as someone that both grew up with Earthbound, like I love the Earthbound, like and all the other games that are like that.
Right. Okay. Cool. What was it about Earthbound that really captivated you?
I think most RPGs, like they focused on like kings and queens or sci-fi or some other nature of that sort of thing. Earthbound just focused on the modern era. It was just, you know, you go out, you're a little kid beating up punks with your yo-yo or baseball bat, right?
Right.
Um, Going through a forest, and there are some fantastical elements, like there's zombies and like floating UFOs, but it's all like, you know, stuff that's like you could go out and see today. It's not something that you really saw like in any other like RPG, and kind of like really brought to mind of like, oh, well, and again with Earthbound, I'm old enough to say that like, I played it as a teenager and just like, oh, but this was like this is me. This is like how I go through and do things. I'm just hanging out with my friends,
Right.
playing baseball or whatever, right? So,
So the
like,
difference is how you can identify with the characters.
exactly.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay. Fascinating. So then you must be a follower of the indie mother-like scene.
Oh, absolutely. So, as part of the crew from, the Starman.net website, which, we still kind of keep up and try to keep going to this day, I still follow a lot of the indie mother like, still playing a lot of them. And that's also includes all of Fangamer's sort of like major like indie RPGs that we support. And it's not just Toby Fox's Undertale. That includes like Amori, One Shot, and a whole bunch of other sort of mother-like RPGs. And again, I mentioned that like, oh, though there's kind of like, oh, it's kind of a meme. That's one of like the major like indie genres, if you will. But like, from my perspective, it's been almost my entire life, and I love it.
Right. Okay. My goodness. Ever since you were a teenager, you I mean it's captivated you to the point where now you're
Hmm.
even upkeeping this this age-old community. Um yeah. So goodness gracious. Are there any indie RPGs like this that you feel more people should know then?
Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass, by far.
Huge game.
Uh,
Absolutely. Yes.
So, absolutely, that one is one that like I love and would love to see like more people play.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited for the creators' next title. I
Yeah.
can't remember it off the top of my head, but
Yeah. I think it's
definitely
called Hymn to
talking with
the
them.
Earless God,
Him
right?
to, yes, exactly, right?
Yeah.
So really, really looking forward to it. Back to the Kickstarter, and just looking forward to that, just on a personal level. If not like anything else that I can possibly do, but hey, definitely just would happily want to just play it personally.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm super excited. The art looks brilliant in his new project. Yeah, yeah, my goodness. Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass though. Big fan of that here at Electric Airship. So yeah. My goodness. What sort of draws you to Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass? What do you like about it?
Oh, I love the combat completely,
Uh-huh.
and I'm just like, how can you even like do this, right? Like, for some reason, I still have the numbers boss like tucked in the back of my head somewhere.
Right.
Um, I wish I could even be like half as good as some of those bosses.
Really brilliant design. And
Yeah,
it's engaging from the very start, even as you're sort of learning the base mechanics.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
like something about how you can steal from nearly every enemy, right? And it'll have
hmm
like an interesting effect, right? It's just very rewarding. Um, other things like, oh, the transformation mechanic, right? That
Yeah,
adds so
and
much
a lot of
depth.
that, and talk about mother likes, right? You know, a lot of that is from Mother 3, of course.
Right, right. Um, yeah, yeah. A lot of people compare Jimmy to Mother 3. Yeah, well, glad to hear you're a fan of Casey's games. And speaking of Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass, Electric Airship is the proud publisher of this game. Check this trailer out. Thanks for watching. Back to the show. Cool. Are we ready to move on to some fan questions?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So, number one, Boncha from Blue Sky asks, what's something you hope players 100% new to off will notice?
One thing that I think players new to off is that I want them to feel like it's experiencing a movie that popularized a lot of things that you may see in games today, but was brand new back then. I really
Right.
want people to come into this mindset of like 2008 and just imagine that time and like all the different like especially like the AAA games and kind of like the sort of like indie space whatever was existent back then. Back then you had to like get big with a publisher. I believe that was still a 360 area where you still had to like get big with a publisher to be able to like put things on, and it was before Steam Greenlight at the time.
Hmm.
So like back then there wasn't a lot of like experimentation that you would see today, right?
Right.
Um, so a lot of people will go, well, what do you want me to notice? And you go, well, I've seen that, I've seen that, and I just want a lot of people to know is that that was, if not the first, certainly the one to popularize a lot of concepts. So I want people to like recognize like, hey, this was like where this came from. That's kind of what I want like a lot of players to notice. Again, that's
Hmm.
why we were focusing heavily on like the sort of like um keeping things close to the original while still making things accessible to like new players is like, you know, we want people to feel what it felt like back in 2008.
Right. Yeah, you clearly have a lot of respect for the history, the how influential this game has been. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel because it was brilliant then, and it still stands as just important today.
Exactly, and that's why many of like the puzzles are entirely unchanged, for better or worse. The Chimney Fall minigame, which as an engineer I'm super proud of, is fully emulated. It's the way it was back in 2008, for better or
That's
worse.
awesome.
For better or worse, right? It is the
Yeah,
same as it ever was, right? So
down to
again,
the
it's one of
even the
those
idiosyncrasies.
down to
Yeah,
the fact that you have to be like extremely perfectly center on it, which is really annoying, and a lot of playtesters don't like it. But it's one of those like, nope, we're going like hard remake on this. So yeah,
awesome, 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 cool. Um, so yeah, guys, take note of how influential this game has been, the place it takes in history.
yeah.
Next, we got a few questions from the RPG Maker subreddit. The Gabby asks, "What was it like working with Toby Fox?"
So Toby's not involved too much in the project. He's got his own game that he's working on after all. Certainly like my interactions have been positive, and he does provide feedback and a lot of help when necessary. Certainly was able to go back and provide, like, every time we do something, we show, like, especially music, we show like this is what the music's going to be, and then like there was an iterative process there. Was absolutely on board when we needed to change the music, so
Awesome.
provided an updated set of music. Um, and in general, has always just been a great and positive experience. Especially like, providing, the biggest thing has just been providing lots and lots of feedback. And so always just been like a great experience. Like, nothing, I can't say anything bad about him.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so yeah, Toby, I guess, was notoriously a big fan of Off from the
Right.
beginning, right? So naturally, he'd have lots of great feedback. Next, we've got a question from Bless Tama. Do you believe the overall experience here is better than the original?
That's do you want me to give like the loaded answer? Go, yeah, my version's best, right? Like, no. I believe so. There are aspects that we really like have brought, such as the updated UI in the menus and shops, the updated combat, which, especially like the widescreen combat looks great on a Switch handheld or on a Steam Deck.
Hmm.
A lot of the QOL that we provided. So there is now a continue system, so that if you lose a battle, you can just go right back to where you were. You don't have to go back to a save. You can still have an option to, if you find yourself in a position where you can't for whatever reason. So there are a lot of aspects to the game that I think like is better than the original. And I know a lot of people have said that like we haven't quite reached the mark for some people, and this is especially true when it comes to the loss of like the original soundtrack. So I agree, it's not a perfect release. And with the conditions that we have, I don't think that there could ever be a perfect release, right? With just, as time has moved on, it
Hmm.
makes things a little bit um it makes things interesting to put together. So,
Interesting.
as time has happened, as 17 years later, everyone is in different stages of lives now.
Right, right.
So I don't think that you can like create like the perfect release. That said, I think it is like a worthwhile experience for both old fans and for bringing new people in, especially the QOL, the menus. It makes things a lot more like uh, much more accessible to new players, especially those that have never played like never played many RPGs.
Hmm.
We've added a lot of your again, your traditional accessibility options, making things much more, I don't want to say easier. Easier is not the word I want to use. A whole bunch of quality of life, like I said, like continue, and things that are just plain frustrating from the original game, we have fixed.
Yeah, reducing the friction in like things like menus, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think that is interesting for other players coming in that would be a different experience would be the combat speeds, right? So I forgot to mention that in the combat section. We have different speeds of combat. So, and that they were named patient, thoughtful, and unrelenting. And you had a chance to see this in the demo, right?
Hmm.
And so the combat speeds is not a combat difficulty. So I want people to be aware that like, no, there's no like uh, uh, penalty for using them, technically speaking, right? But the biggest difference is that, especially in the unrelenting speed, is that all the animations start playing like one on, like on top of each other, as opposed to the patient speed where each animation gets a chance to play, tell you what it's doing, what its effect is. So if you are an RPG expert, you can play on the unrelenting speed and still get a good idea of what's happening through the iconography and just the animations themselves. But if you need a little bit more of a breather, then you can use the patient mode, and that tells you the different um, like all the different effects. So, for example, when you get
Right.
poisoned, it's you did a poison attack, and then it flashes purple and says a little poisoned on the player and says you are now poisoned, right? And then on the unrelenting mode, all of that occurs all at once
Yeah.
while the timer is continuing to tick, right? So it's both respectful for players that need the extra time to understand what's happening, and respectful for the experts. They're like, no, I want to mash buttons. Like, well, we got a button mash mode now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So you've got options that let people sort of cater things to their own needs, you know. Maybe they've played off before, you know, and they don't need all that extra time dedicated to tutorialization essentially. Um so yeah, huge, huge. Smoothing the experience for experienced players. Um cool. So next we got a question from the off subreddit. How many dogs are in the game?
Um, I'm trying to make a joke here, but I am actually legitimately saying in just the one, because I don't think there's any other dogs. So it's just the one dog. It was something that was added very last minute so that we can avoid lawsuits essentially. So like, and that one was just, hey, I need a replacement sprite art, and I got one essentially.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Um wow. So the dopefish is actually like uh you know, something that people could be potentially litigious over.
We want to be super safe. So that's why this is a major
Right.
release. Off has
Yeah.
announced that we have over 150,000 wish lists. We just achieved
Huge.
that not that long ago. So
Congrats.
because of the size of just the number of eyes that are on it, we do need to be more cautious than, something a little more under the radar. So I do apologize. I know that there is a history and, oh, other people have allowed it. And the answer to the question is really just, we just need to be extra cautious, just for everyone's sake, because we don't want anyone to um, we don't want anyone to get in trouble. Is essentially what we're
Right.
looking for.
Right. From the start you've been saying you're doing this for Mortis, right?
Exactly. Right.
You do not want to get Mortis into a lawsuit.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. So and so, like I said, we're still, the original is still out there. And if something happens, that's fine. But the rules change when you go paid, right?
Right.
And so that's, we're trying to be following the paid rules now.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, finally, a few questions from one of my favorite communities, the Unique Indie RPGs Discord. Ferris, the dev of Hypersomnia, asks, were other engines considered before you decided on Unity?
The off remake was originally going to be on a custom engine that I had built, and I had it running on Switch hardware at one point. But we had a team on a different title come in with Unity experience, and so instead of it being just me, we were able to actually like get a team together, and so they had a lot more experience on Unity, and so we ultimately chose because not only they had that, we thought it would be easier to hire for.
Right.
Turns out building an emulator in Unity is a very specific engineering job, and so it
Hmm.
wasn't as easy to hire than we thought it would be. So I would put that in the do not recommend column. That is to say, an emulator. Unity is fine for what it is. So with any engine, you have your positives and your negatives, and your positive for Unity is first class support on everything essentially.
Right. Okay. I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Um, so next, we've got MSN Shame, the developer of Wishmaker, who wants to ask, did Mortis Ghost contact Fangamer first, or vice versa?
So I'm not sure of the specifics of the nature. My first involvement was when a whole bunch of us were talking about, as I mentioned before, a whole bunch of us were talking about like what can we do for Mortis. I think, but I'm not 100% positive. I think that it was Toby who introduced Mortis to Fangamer. but I'm
Oh,
not 100%
fascinating.
positive on that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not 100% positive on that. So I don't know the true history of that. That is before I was able to get involved because there was a thought about, and obviously available for purchase right now, merchandise for off as well.
Right.
So that originally came up through the merchandise chain originally.
Oh, okay. Right on. So lots of spinning cogs. It's hard to pinpoint exactly where, but you guys have been in it to help Mortis from the very beginning.
Yes, absolutely. So that was like the original concept from the very beginning, at least in the especially like at Fangamer, we have all sorts of pitches about like what we're going to do for merchandise and that sort of thing. And the pitch was always just um, uh, like what can we do for Mortis? That was like always like the original pitch, like to start with.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So the next question they have is, what was the process like regarding the production of the new music?
We were devastated, devastated that we were unable to get the original soundtrack, just like everyone else in the off community. It
Wait,
was
so why not? What happened?
it's really hard to say. There has been ACC has put out a public statement, and that's pretty much the closest to the truth that there is. There was not a lot of like talking amongst everyone, and then as we started like moving on and starting being like, hey, this is actually a real thing that's happening,
Hmm.
it just kind of, you know unable to be able to get it essentially.
Right. So you guys were sort of deep into development by the time that you needed to sort of talk with these guys about it, and then they were just like, "Yeah, no, actually, we don't want you to use the music."
It was not, well, yeah, no is one way of putting it. Again, I want to really refer to what ACC's like people like what fans have posted that ACC has told them.
Uh-huh.
Again, that's pretty close to reality, so I would refer to that statement specifically.
Right then.
I can't remember off the top of
Okay.
my head, so that's why I don't want to like misquote
Right.
something essentially.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. Well, we'll refer to that then.
Now, going back to the process of the new music, now, even though we didn't get the original, and we were devastated to not get the original soundtrack, so our next step was to be able to go and, like, okay, we went in and asked, like, all of our friends to, like, pitch in and help out. And so it was like, all right, Toby, would you make some music for us? Um, Night Margin, would you go in and make music for us, right? It was not easier, especially on my side, to go in and ask just a lot of friends to go, hey, can you help contribute music to this project? Because I don't want to say we were like very early in production, not like, we were past like the feasibility stage to be like, okay, this is actually possible. But we were like, do we do this or not? And we were able to put things together. So yeah, Toby, Night Margin,
Huge. Night Margin, for those unfamiliar, the one-shot developer.
yes, Banshee Beat, who worked on Omori, but all the environmental tracks that you hear, especially in like all the different zones, was done by Morosk, who did. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. Morosk, who did the music for Stray, and is a
Awesome.
close friend of Mortis, actually. So all
Interesting.
of us on the dev team kind of pitched in to go, hey, like, um, who can we bring in to really like um to do this? And the concept really was like, um, fans of off. Hey, you really liked this. Let's help contribute a track or 10 or 12 or 20 in some cases to the game.
Right. Right. Okay. That's awesome. So you really went to people who knew the source material and, you know, had some profound respect for it.
Yeah,
Um,
and as Mortis has said in a statement when it came to some of the other songs, um, when we had the chance to look at it from a different angle, um, we're taking that chance. So some people may be disappointed that it was not like a one for one remake. When we're trying to like let the musicians like provide their own like sort of take on the music as well, right? So it is an unfortunate situation where we couldn't get the original, and we're trying something new for better or worse.
Yeah. Yeah, word. At least you got some of the best in the game, right? You got
That's
the
true.
people who respect the source material and that have a gajillion fans, and yeah, they are the right people for the job, if anybody.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
certainly one, and especially with a lot of our playtesters who have never like played the original game, they're like, "Oh, I love the new soundtrack," and never, and that sort of thing. So we've been receiving a lot of positive comments on the new soundtrack as well. So coming from my side, that's very encouraging.
nice. Yeah. Yeah, good. I'm glad you're getting that reality check. Glad you're getting that reality check. People can be very critical when things aren't exactly the same, but yeah. I mean, just objectively, it's pretty good. It's pretty dang good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, like I said before, is it a perfect release? You know, I don't think any release can be perfect. Um, so, uh, to everyone that is frustrated that we couldn't get the original soundtrack, I just want to like, hey, give it a try and see what you think. You know, um, yeah, just like
Yeah.
let give it a chance for 17 years later, a different take, if you will, right?
Word. Word. Yeah. You guys are doing your due diligence to respect the source material for sure. It's still available, the original
Hmm.
French version. So awesome.
And we might have done some file moving around to make things a little, if you want to do some file shenanigans, I'm not going to stop you.
Ho ho! Mod support confirmed. Okay. So perfect. That's exactly what people want to hear. Finally, the final question of the interview. MSN Shame asks, does Fangamer plan on publishing other games?
So that's an interesting question. Publishing or developing?
Dun dun
So
dun.
I know, right? So when it comes to publishing, Fangamer does do all sorts of physicals. We do physicals for Undertale, we do physicals for Stardew Valley, we do physicals for Hollow Knight, we do physicals for Omori. So we do physicals all the time, and technically that's considered to be our publishing department. When it comes to digital publishing, that's something we've been thinking about, but it's really hard to do so, especially when publisher is kind of a negative term in the indie game space. Um, so it's one of those things where, like when it comes to publishing other people's titles, we would probably take it on like a case by case basis and looking at friends, and I understand that funding is hard to come by, and so it's going to be the same like with us. That said, developing other titles, you might see game 2 in like 5 years.
Oh, something to be excited about there. That's awesome.
So certainly, very everyone's very excited that the that off has been so far. The game's not out yet, but so far been such a success in wish lists and people excited for it and social media. So we've been after we get all done with our updates for off, which we will still provide post update like balance and that sort of thing. Um, we're gonna be looking seriously at a new IP for game 2. I can't provide too many details, not least of which is it's still kind of in flux and we're focusing on off right now. But we're Fangamer is probably looking at a game 2.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. Considering some of your great connections in the indie RPG community, this is, sending off all kinds of spidey senses for me. I'm very, very excited to see what you guys come up with.
I think we're going to come up with something. We're coming up with some plans. Certainly working on some things. You're going to see something. My goal is to come up with something like completely different. I want something that like people are going to be like, you went from off to that, right? And I can't like
Uh-huh.
again, we're still working on like the specific details. So like I have nothing really to say besides like it's going to be a huge vibe shift. That's for certain.
It's going to be a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, okay. Well, my goodness. You guys heard it here first. Ryan Alyea developing a new IP in the next 5 years. Cool. Well, I like to reserve this last session for shout outs. Anybody you'd like to give a little spotlight?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm big friends with a lot of people in the indie games community, especially when it comes to some of the titles. As of recording, there was the Indie Direct today, and I was very excited to see two titles on there that I'm really looking forward to. And that would be Yacht Club's next title, Mina the Hollower. So if you've not seen that, that's sort of I guess I don't work for them. I don't do anything. So I guess I can just say like it's kind of like a Link's Awakening sort of game, right? So
Right.
that's something to like that I'm just personally looking forward to.
Huge. Big fan of Link's Awakening.
Yeah. And another game that I'm really looking forward to is Neverway. So that was also in the Indie Direct today. And so if you haven't had a chance to check that one out, that one's a bit of a sort of like horror kind of like life sim style game, so very psychological horror. So I had a chance to see that at Bit Summit, so definitely go check that out if you haven't already.
Okay. Sounds like Ryan's in the know about that one. Cool. Looking forward to these great titles. Great, great titles. Brian, thank you so much for coming aboard the Electric Airship today. It's been a privilege and an honor to have you.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.